Sweet. Well, this is a very, very exciting. My Uncle Manny is coming in to visit today. And which messages you said, Chris? Oh, sweet. And I am interviewing Manny today. I'm super excited. So this is my awesome Uncle Manny. He was a huge inspiration to me growing up. He used to tell me stories about the animals that he worked with. He worked at Brookfield Zoo, Shedd Aquarium, does aquarium maintenance, and has the Aquarium Fish Sanctuary. And so I always would be super excited to get a chance to chit-chat with Manny. So thank you so much for coming in today and for hanging out and for answering these random questions that we threw on you.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
So thank you. Okay, so we've got a list of actually really cool questions. What inspired you to work with animal breeding and conservation at such renowned institutions? So how did you get into, like, the Shedd and Brookfield are really big institutions. Okay. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you got into that?
Fish guy since I was a little guy. I always had an aquarium. 20-gallon long tank was my first tank. And then I tried breeding first live bearers, which was kind of easy. And then I moved on to breeding egg layers. So my first egg layers that I bred were zebrafish.
Like zebra Daniels? Oh, cool.
And what I did was I tried to separate the sexes beforehand, and I put them in a 10-gallon tank with 3 layers of marbles on the bottom. And about 2-3 inches above the marble was the water line. What I wanted them to do was they're non-sticky eggs, so they were going to fall through the marbles, and that was my first egg layers I ever bred.
That's exciting. And how old were you? You must have been
I don't know, maybe in 8th grade.
8th grade or so?
Yeah, 7th, 8th grade.
I'm going to move this.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Then I rarely told my friends that I had fish and stuff. It was just like my thing.
Really?
Yeah. And so later on, when I started dating my future wife, my girlfriend then, there was a pet store around the corner. So I went there, I got him some bettas. I got a nollie for their little terrarium.
Oh, cool.
So we'd go buy crickets and feed them that. And so I introduced their family to different types of creatures there. There's a lot more stories to that, but I'll get back to it. So getting back to the topic at hand. I befriended the manager at the zoo pet shop on 35th and Archer, and I started working there part-time. And I told him that I wanted to expand. I became manager, and then he said I told him I want to expand and have another shop, and it was a look around for one. But meanwhile, I started volunteering at the Shedd Aquarium because I had the day off during the week. So I volunteered there for a couple of years, and 2 years later I applied for a job, and I got the position, Gallery 3 at the Shedd Aquarium. It was tropical, temperate, and cold water fish. That was my gallery, and I had 2 harbor seals also. So we had octopus, nautilus, we had deep water crabs, isopods, I had sharks, leopard sharks, a giant sea bass, and fish from the Gulf of Mexico. A variety of different fish from the Gulf of Mexico. So I worked there, and then later on I applied for a position of special projects. So I moved on. I had my own special project shop, and I would set up special aquariums, special setups, and I would do all the maintenance, but all the work that the engineers couldn't do in the building that was more aquatic theme. And so that was my job. Oceanarium opened up, and I applied for it, and I got that job. I was the second person hired for the Oceanarium, and worked with the sea otters from the Valdez oil spill. Penguins came in, and this is before the Oceanarium opened. And so we had aquariums in the back that we had set up. The harbor seal tanks got converted to sea otter tanks.
Okay, cool.
Until the ocean. Then once the Oceanarium opened up, then we moved them all in. The the Pacific white-sided dolphins we already had out in San Diego, I believe it was. And they're being taken care of out there with some trainers. Then they all came over. The belugas came later. And so worked at the oceanarium for 7 years.
Wow.
And then I got a job offer at Brookfield Zoo to be a jellyfish breeder. So I moved over to Brookfield Zoo.
That's cool.
For
So they
6
contacted
years.
you and they were like, hey.
Well, the curator of fishes, because I was a marine mammals, the curator of fishes was in the interview panel at Brookfield Zoo. And I found out about the job, and then I said, hey, it might be a conflict of interest for him to be interviewing me. So he wasn't there for my interview. It was all Brookfield Zoo people, and I got the job offer.
That is super
pretty
cool.
Yeah.
So what was, I mean, you had a lot of different roles at the Shedd, but in terms of Brookfield, like, were there any really big differences in terms of what you were doing project-wise?
Yeah, it's a different aspect. In the fishes department, you were responsible for one area that was yours. And it was your area, is what you called home. In the marine mammal department, you had nothing to call your own except training behaviors.
Okay.
Everybody shared in all the work we did.
So, you didn't have specific areas. Okay.
Yeah. So I was the lead for the harbor seals, but I was responsible for different behaviors that we were working on. With the beluga whales, the Pacific white-sided dolphins, even the penguins, and the harbor seals.
Cool.
My harbor seal that I was training was blind, so it was very challenging to work with her.
Wow, how did you get around that?
It just target training.
Yeah.
And so I'd come in, blow my whistle, come over, it would target, and then all my behaviors were just
through
me
feel
leading her to the...
And voice then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Stay, come, it all worked out really good. She was really, really good.
That's really neat. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty crazy. And then what species were you most involved in breeding? What made those species particularly interesting or challenging? Was there like any favorites that you had? Because I know you work with a lot of breeding of different species, or like in your special projects.
Let me finish the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because there was a different aspect to it. So, working at the fishes department, it was my responsibility. And then work for my area. Then working in marine mammals, I was like a cog in a wheel. I was part of the group.
You're part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the Brookfield Zoo, at the Living Coast, it was a combination of both.
Okay.
So I had my area, the jellyfish area, and some aquarium tanks. But I also helped out on all the other areas with penguin feeding, cleaning of the tanks of the penguins, the vampire bats, the chinchillas, the dagoos, scorpions that we had in there, tarantulas. We all rotated and helped each other out.
Because I know a lot of places are super isolated. Like most of the zookeepers that I know personally, like they don't interact with other departments at all. They just stick with their own. So it's really cool that you got to do.
Yeah, well, it was in our building, the Living Coast, you know. But at lunchtime at a break, we used to get together with the other buildings and we'd chit-chat and stuff. So we got along really good out in Brookfield Zoo. So that was my answer to the...
That's cool. That's really neat. Yeah, they're two like very different systems, like you were saying. That's fascinating. Was it in terms of like workplace culture, I guess, like a fairly easy transition? Was everybody there like really into the animals and pretty easy to like, get along with, or was it kind of a different vibe with the two different places?
Well, both at that time, not now, at that time, both Brookfield Zoo and the Shedd Aquarium was a patriarchal system. You know, the director, he was dad, literally, he was dad, and it was very patriarchal. But when I left, Shedd Aquarium was already becoming like a little corporation.
Okay.
We had the president and vice presidents underneath. It all broke down to a flow chart.
Like a board and got really corporate.
And Brookfield Zoo was the same thing when I came on. And then once the director left, a new one came in, and then that became a little bit of a corporation too.
Okay. Because I know they're I believe they're AZA, right?
Yeah.
Were they AZA already when you came on, or did they?
Oh yeah, they've been for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow. Yeah. Any favorite projects while you were working at either place, like when it comes to specific animals and breeding, or any?
Jellyfish, very challenging. Extremely challenging, because jellyfish The people at that time were very successful on the East Coast and West Coast breeding jellyfish. Very successful. But they were using natural seawater. Here at Brookfield Zoo, I was using...
We don't have no seawater.
Nope, we were using synthetic seawater. Tropic marine salt was the salt. Later on, we switched to instant ocean. But it was synthetic, and I couldn't get the jellyfish to strobulate. The little polyps that I was taking care of, I just couldn't get them to strobulate and release the baby jellyfish. So I read a paper on strobulation on Dorothy Spangenberg, who she had done some work sending the jellyfish up on a shuttle for experiments. She was using potassium iodide, potassium iodate Lugol solution to strobulate the jellyfish. And so I started experimenting with that. And lo and behold, that was the key for me. All my little polyp colonies started releasing jellyfish.
And I think one detail like that changed everything.
Yeah. And then I had thousands of little fiery little baby jellyfish. Then I would raise those up. They were dinner-sized plate. And I had up to like 600 on exhibit at one time, big jellyfish.
Did you rotate them out at all? Or like how did it work in terms of having that many jellyfish and then having the on-exhibit jellyfish? Did you have like a ton behind the scenes that you would rotate forward or like...
Actually, other institutions started contacting me.
Really?
And then I was shipping out the jellyfish to other institutions.
Wow.
Yeah. The difference between jellyfish shipping and regular fish is that with fish, you fill them up with air, put oxygen.
Yeah.
With jellyfish, you take all the air out. No oxygen. And now you tie up the bags. No, you don't want the air bubbles going inside their bells, inside the bell of the jellyfish, because the air damages them.
Wow.
So you ship them with no air, just cool packs.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's fascinating. Yeah. Was it, how many species of jellyfish did you get a chance to work with?
Just the moon jellyfish.
With the moon jellyfish?
Yeah,
okay, the moon jelly specifically. Yeah. That is like crazy cool.
Yeah.
They're such beautiful animals. They're amazing.
Yeah, I had these other Gonionemus vertens, these other small little jellyfish, but they were just, they came in with some live rock that we gotten in, and I found the polyps in the plumbing. And I removed them.
Yeah.
And then I got them to release, and they were little jellyfish.
Teeny dudes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But they never went on display. They were just...
Did you see? I mean, it was like 10 years ago or so now, but like how they came out with those at-home jellyfish aquariums. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Can you tell me your opinion on them? Because I'm just super curious.
No, I'm user friendly. I really am. And I hope the best. And it's nice that they do that.
Is it real jellyfish?
Yeah. And they're round tanks because they'll bash into
that's me around
bash into stuff. But I've never seen anybody actually like keep them in it. I've seen them advertised, but I've never seen like whether or not.
Because it doesn't sound like it'd be easy.
It doesn't sound like it would be easy. Yeah. So how much water? Like obviously for most tanks we do water changes and stuff. Like what was the maintenance required on moon jellies?
Well, the original tanks that were designed were a German name called Kreisel tanks. It means Ferris wheel.
Really?
So it's a Kreisel tank. You wanted the fish to be going in a circular and not hit walls if possible.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. Well, those tanks are like super expensive. So what we had to do was modify these, and they call them pseudo-Kreisels. So you would set them up in different ways so that the key thing is to have water brush against the screen. As the water goes out, you want the water brushing in front, sweeping the jellyfish away from the screen.
Okay.
So that's the key. And then you got to keep them off the floor. So the flow of them is very important.
So important.
And there's different designs of pseudo-Kreisel tanks that you can come up with. And so that's like a small one that you got to keep moving all the time.
Wow. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
A lot to keeping jellyfish, guys.
And at Brookfield Zoo, I had polyps from California. The Steinhardt Institution was the ones who sent me the polyps. And so it's cold water polyps. So I had to keep the water at like 55, 65 around
big chillers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now there's warmer moon jellyfish polyps too, but I had cold ones too.
And where are the moon jellies from specifically?
They're different areas. They're East Coast, West Coast. They're around the world.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like how vast their range is. That's super cool.
Is that what you saw in Alaska?
Yeah, there were some maroon jellyfish out there in Alaska.
Some in Alaska too?
I think I saw something.
That's cool.
It's just a lot of lion's mane I saw.
Yeah. Wow. That had to be really neat. Like being out on excursion and then seeing what you work with.
That's
Yeah.
what he does. He looks under bridges.
Yeah.
He's like,
Can't help it.
Yeah, you gotta look. If there's any like a puddle or
Yeah.
anything, I'm always looking for
Yeah.
stuff too wherever I go.
I go on vacation, I'm on the beach. I'm
Yeah.
not just beach combing, but I'm looking for life here and there on the rocks. I'm always searching.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have the fun.
It's hard to get out of that mode too. It's funny. Anytime we go to Florida, there's anoles everywhere, little lizards and stuff, and I get so accustomed to trying to see anything that moves that when I come back home here, like we don't have anything like that. So like leaves will go by, and I'm like, was that a lizard? I just start looking for them everywhere.
Can I confess something?
Go right ahead.
Please do.
It shouldn't get me in trouble, but we were in Cabo San Lucas vacationing.
Pull the mic a little closer.
A little closer?
Over the edge.
Yes.
So I was vacationing in Cabo San Lucas, and I saw some invertebrates that I really liked. These shrimp I
Andrew's
hadn't
just
seen
shaking
before,
her head.
and some some snails, some really lot of cool stuff. So like the anemones and stuff that I got, I wrapped them up in paper towels,
Okay.
plastic bags, and I got a bottle, like
Yeah.
a Coke bottle, filled it up with salt water. I put the shrimps in there,
Yeah.
kept it up, and I carried that on me
Really?
through the airport.
You got through?
Back then they weren't searching like they do now.
Yeah.
And I got through, and I got them home.
You brought a little bit of it with
well,
you.
At the time I had the pet store, so I had salt water.
Yeah, you
things I
had
could
everything
put
you
them in there.
needed.
And I
Did
actually,
they make it?
huh?
Did they make it?
Oh yeah. They were wet paper towels, the inverts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like little sea cucumbers and stuff. Yeah, all that
That's
made it.
awesome.
And I did donate it to the aquarium. I don't know if they want to know that, but I did donate the snails that were like really rare little snails.
The
They were
cool
kinda
ones.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, everything that we have is field collected at some point, so that's pretty cool.
I did one time get some arowanas and arapimas
Really?
at the pet trade. And they were actually at the wholesalers. The arapimas were like confiscated. Someone had brought them in,
Yeah.
and then they were cleared. The wholesaler was cleared to sell them. And I
Wow.
bought two arapimas.
How big were they?
They were, a yardstick maybe.
Man.
Yeah. I donated them to the shed after I had them for like 6 months, because then I had my taste of having owned them.
You're like,
you know?
okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, same thing with arowanas. No, they were legal then, the black and the silvers.
Yeah.
But the arapimas was like, oh wow, I got to keep arapimas on my
Yeah,
own. Owned
that is-
them, literally.
Really cool.
Yeah.
getting when you were in the Amazon?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I would love to hear about your travels and like where
Yeah.
you've been too, because I know you've been all kinds of places.
In Iquitos, Peru, we went down on a collecting trip with the Shedd Aquarium. We went down and
You were there a month?
yeah, I was very dark. That's a lot. There's a lot to talk about that one.
I might have to do different part one and a part two and
yeah.
part three.
That's a good story, because he was there a month. The
Wow.
first thing he said is like, I won't be able to talk to you for a month.
I think we're gonna have to definitely set up a podcast station.
That would be awesome. Yeah, because this is
Yeah.
super impromptu. Like, thank you for just popping on and for hanging out. And I've had I feel like I've had so many questions growing up and as a kid, because like we'd usually see each other at holidays and
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that, but we
yeah.
never really got a whole lot of time outside of that.
Yeah.
And so it's been like decades, I guess, of like picturing stories you have told me, or like having questions that I would maybe forget to ask, or like, Christmas and Thanksgiving, that's
Yeah.
all busy. It is a busy time, and it's
Yeah.
fun to try to see everybody, but it's really fun getting one-on-one time to actually get to chit-chat and like talk animals, because like my entire life I've basically been chasing the high of learning about animals, seeing them in the wild, trying to document them. We had some great suggestions today of doing journaling when I
Okay.
go traveling.
Okay.
Because, like you, I'm always looking for stuff, and I'm always finding stuff, and doing like specific journals for specific trips where I'm documenting all the different species I find. And I definitely would love to chit chat with you more about like the different things you've seen. But
When I had the pet store, my favorite day. Now remember, I not only owned the pet store, but I was working at the shed during the whole time I owned the pet store.
oh wow, that's cool.
So I was head manager. But
Yeah.
on my day off, I would go to the fish wholesaler. O'Hare Tropical Impulse, who are not around anymore. and Wilson's Pet Supplies, but they only had supplies. They didn't have any fish. But anyway, getting back. My favorite day was the day I went to the fish wholesaler.
Fish day.
Yeah, and the specific areas I would look for was the brackish water section.
Yeah.
Because that's where the more rare fish would sometimes pop in.
Yeah.
Like a tripod fish and other kinds of fish. Freshwater damsels.
Okay.
I got a
Wow.
few of those. And they were, and this
I
one
didn't
island.
know there was freshwater damsels.
This
That's
one
crazy.
island specifically, and even at the shed, when I asked the curator about it, he goes, "What?" I go, "No, it's in the book. Look, and I got some at the wholesaler."
Yeah.
And I picked them up, and then we had them in freshwater tributaries on display. But yeah, that was my favorite day because I
cool.
got
You
to
never
see
know
all
what-
the fish.
what might come in. Yeah.
And I would buy the rare stuff.
That's super cool. I would say out of fresh and out of salt, do you have any particular favorites in terms of like fish keeping?
It's got to be the jellyfish. You know,
Jellyfish.
my license plate.
Oh, yes.
My license plate say jellyfish. Really, I really enjoyed that because it was so difficult to crack the code.
Yeah.
And I did it.
And you
know?
did,
Yeah,
and that is a really impressive code to crack too.
The animals are the dolphins, the penguins. They're all great. Penguins are stinky, by the way. Nobody realizes how stinky they are.
Stinky penguins.
And their poop, they stain the floor and they power spray it and still there. But anyway, but I love them.
Penguins.
Penguins, yeah.
I
Sticky
said
penguin.
jellyfish. I'm like, jellyfish poop on the floor?
No, and then they got tough. The flippers, they paddle, they flipper you, they paddle you.
Oh,
and
they just like
Right.
kick you.
yeah.
Me and Igor went to the Brookfield Zoo, and my dad was doing a carving for him. This was about 15 years ago. And we were there at like 5 in the morning, so no one was there. So we just were able to walk in the penguin exhibit. And this is before they had a barrier to stop you from reaching in.
Yeah.
So no one was around, so
Yeah,
we
they
just reached their
swim.
finger
Yeah.
in. And one of them was real friendly, but the other one was like, get out of here. And like came charging
You don't
and
belong
attacked
here.
us.
Yeah. No, they're strong animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That is so cool. Yeah, no, I could totally keep you here all day. I'm sorry.
No, you got a bunch of good questions. What's next on your...
Let me take a peek. And I don't know how much you like. I don't want to overdo your time too, since you popping in. Yeah, there is a lot of. Man, I kind of want to hear about that Peru story now.
Let's hear it. If you got time.
If you've got
Unless
time
you don't
for
got
it.
time, that's fine.
All
Might
right,
be a
where
really
do I
long
start?
one.
It's a Peru/Galapagos story, but the Galapagos things are my own. So we went down to Peru. We were on a riverboat, Iquitos, Peru. And the riverboat was called Margarita, the Margarita. And it was an old Caucasian white captain. And we got on board, and we had a cook on board. Oh, that was some great food she'd made. Because they catch the catfish there
So
and
it's
cook them.
super fresh,
It was
yeah.
it was delicious, and I never liked catfish, but there it was like great
That's
catfish.
good catfish.
So we went down into different tributaries. It was myself, the curator, and the fishes department manager. The three of us went down there. I know the language, so it was easy for me to communicate with the help. We had guys that helped us with the nets. We did a lot of beach seining with the nets. We just pulled the nets over and collect fish. We collected a whole variety of different fish. The trip, we were there we were delayed at first for 3 or 4 days, so we stayed in the hotel. But then when we got off, we were there for a couple of weeks and we shipped.
And was this through Shedd?
Yes.
Okay, through Shedd.
It's
That's
all
what I
Shedd
thought.
Aquarium. They provided all the funds. So we also had a wholesaler there that helped us pack all the fish we collected
Oh,
to send
okay.
them back.
Yeah, to export them for you.
Yeah. It was an experience. One of the things that's non-fish related is that we came on shore on this one particular, like, not island, but an outcropping. And there were some native people, like really native,
Yeah.
you know,
Indigenous.
and very
Yeah.
indigenous. And there were like 4 or 5 women, and the minute we approached, all the women faded into the forest, and the guys came out,
Really?
you know, and like, what do you want? And the captain talked to them, and then we left. I forgot what we talked about, what he had talked to them about. but that was like an eye opener for me.
Yeah, to see how remote you guys are.
Yeah, and I was told, hey, don't get injured. Don't get injured. You break something. It's gonna take us a week to get back.
Yeah.
So to be careful. Don't
Take
injure
care of
yourself.
Man.
Yeah. There's the fear of piranhas.
Was it like a legit?
No fear.
No
Not
fear?
at all. No.
Okay.
No.
I said there was
Yeah.
a fear, and I'm like, wait, so they're like,
Not-
really?
Yeah. I had pants on. No. There was.
Didn't really have
And we
any-
netted some up on the nets. Mm-hmm. So they're more scared of you than anything.
Yeah, so there wasn't any
Yeah.
crazy piranha
Yeah.
swarming
Yeah.
movie stories.
There is I don't know if I want to get into this in the podcast, the trichomyctrid. It's that small little fish,
The
parasitic.
candiru?
Yeah, it might
That
be.
guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's-
I was gonna ask you. I'm like, is this weird to ask about? But I'm just curious if that's like an actual thing you have to look out for out there.
I had tight swim trunks under my pants just in case.
Just gotta be careful. You just don't know.
Yeah. These guys detect ammonia.
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's
When the
crazy.
fish exhale, they exhale
Yeah.
ammonia, so they're very sensitive. They zoom in on the ammonia, and so they attach themselves to the gills.
Okay.
And they're parasite. They're parasitic catfish.
Yeah.
Very thin, very, very thin. And so, yeah, that's one thing to fear. If you're urinating, they can swim
They
up.
can go up. Ooh.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that was just legend, but it sounds like
No,
that's,
yeah,
that's,
I think it was
a,
always
that's
just
a
that.
real
Yeah,
thing.
it swims up the
Folklore.
urethra, and it has a dorsal spine that pops up, and then it's stuck there.
Don't
So
want
yeah,
that.
you have
No,
to
thank
be.
you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just have to be careful. Yeah. And we did net some up.
Really?
Yeah, we netted some up.
Did he find them on fish or just like by
No,
themselves?
they were by themselves. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Or maybe when we caught them, they got
They
off
could've
the
popped
fish.
out,
Yeah.
yeah.
We also had the field museum with us during that trip.
Really?
Yeah. So the field museum was catching them and putting them in formaldehyde bottles.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep them
Saving
alive, and he's like
specimens.
throwing them in there.
That's the hard thing about like finding new species. I didn't know this, that when new species,
What was it you called him? I remember you telling us.
The Death Doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death. Yeah, we found out earlier this year, like when people discover a new species, I was always under the assumption that you would try to keep it alive, to study it and to document it. I didn't realize that they kill like the first 3 of them
Yeah.
as the
Proof.
proof, and
Yeah.
this is going to be in a museum now. But like,
Yeah.
if there's only 3 and you kill all 3, then like, what good is that?
You wiped out the species.
Yeah. So that is super weird to me. I just found that out, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about that one.
So we were, we'd get on these like little Boston whalers, and we would go out on these tributaries and look for fish. We're going down the tributaries, and arowanas would like bounce. Seemed like they were bouncing off the front of
Really?
the bow, yeah, and like flying out. And,
Wow. Were they seeing anything in particular, or just like jumping?
Jumping, just jumping. Yeah, I think that book you gave me describes that a little bit. Do you remember the book
Yeah,
you gave me?
yeah. Drag It Behind the Glass.
Yes. They talk about the.
Yeah.
the
It's been a
jumping
while
up.
since I
Yeah.
read that one. I might need to
I loved
reread it.
It took
It's
me
a
a
good
while
one.
before I got to it, but then I loved it.
It's
That's
a really
great
good book.
gift. Thank you. Very thoughtful.
I'm so glad you liked it.
So we saw arapimas out there. We didn't catch any. I think we weren't trying to catch anything big. We needed small stuff to send
Yeah.
back. Because the plan was that they would be packed. They're in Peru, in Iquitos, Peru, and then they would be flown into Florida,
Okay.
where the Shedd Aquarium has coral reef tube boat that they go on collecting trips there in Florida.
Oh,
And
interesting.
they go to Bimini and stuff. And so the fish were going to arrive there, and then from there they're going to get repacked and then shipped over to the Shedd Aquarium.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't make that leg of the trip. When the collecting trip ended, with the Shedd's approval, my vacation started. I flew into Ecuador, and then Angie flew in. We met
Nice.
her. We went to Guayaquil, and then we got on a plane to go to the Galapagos Islands.
Oh man, what a dream.
And we were there, but the military plane only flew in like every 3rd day or something.
Really?
Twice a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, twice a week. Yeah.
That's cool. How
So-
long were you there?
It was a cruise. Yeah.
Once a week, like
Yeah.
8 days,
Yeah.
9 days.
A week.
Yeah, it was a smaller boat. We cruised the different islands. Food was great.
It was,
It
but
was,
it's
yeah.
definitely not what you imagine as a
Yeah.
cruise. It's literally like a National Geographic, no dressing up, and,
Yeah.
no nightly entertainment. It was
Simple cabins, all nature.
That sounds so perfect, honestly. I like it, quiet.
here's your shoes because one is always wet.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
had different landings. Yeah. Some were
Wow.
dry, some wet, some were on rocks. So you had to be a little nimble,
Yeah.
to partake in this. But we got to see a lot. It was awesome. I mean,
I was gonna say, what
the-
species?
the-
Like,
the-
what was your favorite
the
that you saw?
Blue-footed boobies. You had. I did get to see a Galapagos penguin there.
Really?
Yeah, that's as far north as they make it.
Really?
They like
I was gonna say, I
Islands.
didn't know they
Everything is
made it
little.
that far north.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's one of those species there. And so they're smaller, kind of. Awesome to see. The marine iguanas. That was great,
That's
The marine
super cool
iguanas.
being able to see them.
Yeah,
They're so crazy looking. They really look like Godzilla.
they do, don't they? Yeah. So it was.
Nursery.
Yeah.
There's a nursery there.
Yeah.
Would they raise up?
The seals or the
The sea,
sea
lion
lions,
nursery.
yeah, the sea lions,
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
and they ignore you. They have. You can walk up to them and they ignore you.
Yeah.
It's like, and so you're told, don't pet them, leave them alone,
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
I think I remember seeing a photo of, I don't remember who it was, at Mama's, of somebody right next to one of the seals or the sea lions while it's like sleeping there, and someone's like right next to it, and it's cool to see them just like they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, and the Galapagos, they're
Yeah.
not afraid of us at all.
Yeah, that's super cool. So growing up, did you in Ecuador do a lot of creature finding?
Me in Ecuador, I came when I was 6 years old.
You were 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I flew in by myself.
I don't even know by yourself.
Yeah, I flew in from, and I had a transfer over in Miami back to Chicago.
Oh, man.
And so I had stewardesses
Yeah.
escort me from place to place. And,
I remember hearing you were little, but I didn't know like little.
yeah, I was 6 years old.
Oh,
Yeah.
little.
I was supposed to go back. My grandpa came a day in front of me. There was a problem with my paperwork, so I got delayed.
Gotcha.
That's why I flew out the next day, and at least I think it's the next day.
Yeah.
So, but once I got here, my dad said, "No, you're staying with me," and my grandpa came back by himself.
Yeah.
My grandpa was raising me in a sense.
Yeah. I wish I would have gotten to meet him and like ask him a million
Yeah.
questions too. 'Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
man, so many cool.
I do remember in
experiences.
Ecuador seeing, I don't know if they're called Ouija-Ouijas. I'm not sure if they were tadpoles or little fish. I can't remember because I was so little. It must have been like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I remember looking into a bowl of those in Ecuador and just like being fascinated by them,
Yeah.
And so I think then is what triggered the fish thing.
Yeah, that's
you
kind of
know?
what started
Yeah,
it.
Yeah. And growing up, I was always fish tanks. I always had them, tried all kinds of different fish. Not too much into reptiles until I started managing the pet store. Then I got fascinated with them, because this reptile guy would come in with his van and all, because he sold it. He went from pet shop to pet shop selling,
Okay.
degus, tokay geckos.
Yeah.
He'd have all these different trunk nose elephant, I think it's called.
The elephant jerk snakes?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they had some of them. And, caimans, little alligators back then, you could get them.
Were you able to have alligators here in Illinois back then?
This wholesaler, I think, had them. I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If I remember correctly. But I do remember the little caimans. I would feed them crickets. I would feed them little guppies, whatever.
Yeah. Little foods.
Yeah, they were cool.
Yeah, can't keep anything like that here anymore.
Yeah. Some stuff you shouldn't. Even now, I question a little bit like pacus. They really shouldn't sell them, but hey.
Yeah.
Because I got to deal with them later on.
Well, that's why part of why I love birds and bees so much is they won't carry animals
Okay.
like that, where
Okay.
people end up having to rehome them because they bit off more than they could chew, or they got bamboozled into buying something that they didn't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And oh my god, I didn't know this pleco was going to get 3 feet long.
Yeah.
That
I get
happens.
that all the time.
That happens all the time, and so that's what I love about the shop is they won't carry large birds.
Yeah.
They won't carry rabbits because they get rehomed so frequently, or pacu or any fish like that.
Iridescent sharks.
Most people can't take care of. So yeah, iridescent sharks.
They're very flighty when they're older, and rehoming them is hard because they bash themselves after you rehome them.
Yeah,
so I've had a hard time keeping them.
The iridescent sharks, tricky. Man, so many cool creatures.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
How long did you own your pet shop for?
7 years.
7 years. Where was it at?
6824 Southwestern Avenue.
Oh, that's very specific.
Yeah. We lived behind the pet store.
Okay.
Yeah, it was connected.
Oh, that's cool.
What was it called?
Angelicus Pet Shop.
Ooh.
It is such a pretty
Angelicus.
name. Angelicus, I love that.
I wanted to be starting with an A, it had to be a fish.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Although a man used to call me Mr. Angelo.
Mr. Angelo.
Yeah,
That's
he called
funny.
me that. I couldn't stop him.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, I guess. I've gone by Abigail. I've gone by like pretty much any type of A name. Sometimes people don't know Adeline, and so Abigail. I went by it for like 2 years, and they're like, "I just found out your name is Adeline." I'm like, "I knew you were talking to me, so like, I didn't feel like correcting you from like all the other side of the building." So, I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Awesome.
Point at me and say, "Hey, you," and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." Super awesome. Well, thank you so much for like hanging out again. Like we can ask you a million questions forever, but yeah, I think we'll probably wrap this up today. I might pop in later, folks, and finish that frog on live. Don't know when, but I'll be on at some point. So make sure to hit that notification bell to be able to get notified when we do go live. So thank you so much again for like coming in and letting us pepper you with a bunch of questions. It definitely would be super fun to do this again.
Yeah.
So
maybe I'll bring pictures.
Yeah, I would love to see pictures. Well, have a great day, guys. I will see you all later, and we're gonna have some visiting time.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.